And I want to get straight into it because Kevin has a ton of stuff to talk about. So, guys, Kevin is a very dear friend of mine that I've known for years, and I consider him a close friend and a mentor. He gives incredible advice. He started the Actors Network in 1991, so I feel that he's kind of the founder of the actor education movement. They had 10,000 members at their peak, and I believe are still operating today in a different capacity now that we're in the digital world. Kevin's the author of the book, The 7 Deadly Sins the Actor Overcomes, and his most recent project is Righteous Gemstones on HBO. He's done over 60 films and TV series, so you are in wonderful hands. I'm going to hand you over to him, make him a host, and you're all his.
Introduce my goodness. I'm the host now. Hey, all. Coming to you live holler from Studio City. Let me start right off by the fact that, and again, I will embarrass myself right off the bat, Kim, because I like to get it out of the way in a hurry. And the way I get it out in a hurry is not that you guys care, but I beat out about 30, 40 Australians here in the States to play an Australian on Lost. And I spent about 17, 18 years actually getting it down enough to where, at least in America, they actually believe that I'm Australian. So I get that out of the way right off the bat. And I'd fool enough people, I just wouldn't fool you guys. So let me say a couple things about me real fast, because the Zoom scenario is difficult for us both. And you guys don't necessarily obviously know me. There are some people that might be guests that come in that are friends of mine that Kim let in from Los Angeles or from the States. But please know I'm a former comic. I talk really fast. I'm a smart ass. Sometimes I will say some things and I that may frustrate you. I am not trying to do that. It's the nature of this profession because there's so much subjectivity to it, and it's not black and white. And I respectfully understand that. But all I want you guys to know is that I'm on your side. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't care. And I always want, since the day I started the network, or way back in 91, I simply want people to not only succeed more, but just simply create more opportunities, which is what the point of this is. Unfortunately, 1% of our profession is black and white. Oh, by the way, I do a lot of psychology and a lot of philosophy along the way with the action task. So just know that that's coming. So if you have thoughts or questions as you go, I always talk with a pencil in my hand. Hopefully I don't jab it in my eye. Just jot them down. I will get them at the end, I promise. But because 1% is black and white, that leaves 99% to be subjective, even with details that are involved. I have made dating analogies and jokes for years because, quite frankly, they're accurate. They're accurate because of mood, timing, scenario. And if you're going to go about doing what I call being proactive versus reactive, you're going to encounter what we like to call rejection. I'm only begging you to not call it that. I call it more, which most of us, if we're over a certain age, had somebody in our past that was never single, or you weren't single at the time, you were both so single and you just kept missing each other. That's a lot of what I transcendently like to phrase with regards to how it functions for us as performers when we're trying to get in for something that we feel we're right for at that particular moment. So kind of with that stated up front, I want to make sure that I define an opportunity that you otherwise didn't have as simply legitimate actor activity. I have a lot of little phrases that, will be on this recording. You guys get to watch it again with Secret Actor Society. So that's cool. But I just call them legitimate actor activity because the thing is, I don't know you guys. And everybody at a given moment is in a different place at a different time about what is currently interesting you. And there is no way for me to possibly know tomorrow what you're going to consider legitimate actor activity, but that's how I couch it. And for the document that Kim sent out to you guys that I put together, no different than dating, the first thing I talk about in this area is you have to understand your own position in the profession that you're in based on the marketplace that you're in. Now, that's not 100% hard line, guys. It's not. But if you're going to create opportunities, they have to be opportunities that at least the person on the other side of the desk, that's the phrase I always use, could actually be willing to consider you for if you're doing this on your own. Because I won't discuss representatives in this, because that's the process. You making an electronic submission or your representative getting you in the door, those are the two things that I call standard. They're just normal. This is about everything outside of that. So if you're going to go make an assessment, however you go about doing it, on your own, you got to be at least willing to say, okay, 85, 90%, I just make up percentages, guys, just invent them. 85, 90% of the time, this looks like something based on my resume, my skill set. As an employee, I use employee and HR a lot instead of actor and casting, because legally, that's what it is. When you get hired, you're an employee, and casting is the HR department. So take at least into consideration your credits and your status within the marketplace when you start to go down the road of trying to create an opportunity. I'll get to some of the sourcing of that in just a second. But with respect to that, here's the wrinkle I want to throw in. Everybody here is a different type, okay? Different projects, blah. The more unique your type is, and or kind of like what I just did with playing around with the Australian accent, if you have a skill set in some way that would make you a more viable candidate for a job that goes beyond your credits because of your skill set, make sure you keep that in mind. Because a particular skill or a very unique look you have for something you're looking for, casting and the producers, more notably the people who are up there, will look past some of that if you're hard to find. So let that be some sort of marker for you when you talk about the first thing I want you to have about going after stuff is, what's my position in the industry? And by the way, guys, I'm only going to touch on these things. I told Kim ahead of time. These 7 ideas of this whole thing would be about 3.5 hours for me. And that's even drinking coffee. So just bear with me. But I just want to give you guys at least a place to work from in terms of starting out right off the bat with how you address your position in the marketplace before you go after stuff. By the way, I cuss too, so that might come out as well. Hope I don't offend anybody. To that end, you have to always look then at your own position. Then you look at the source, right? And like I said, the most common source are all the electronic portals. I'm not talking about that at the moment, because if you're going to point and click with that, or if your representative is working off some form of the breakdowns that we have in Los Angeles that you may have there, that's their job. However, if you're going to take something that's on an electronic option and you want to drill down on it harder, you have to realize that you're now going to go into Kevin land of being proactive and going beyond just sending the thing via electronics, which I am a huge advocate of. But when you start to think about other sources, I want you guys to, oh, by the way, I make a lot of bad Billy movie quotes and shit, so just bear with that. It's like it's the thing from Lawrence Fishburne in Matrix, free your mind. Guys, understand you have source opportunities around you all the time. You have acting classes, you have fellow actors, you have your survival job you may or may not be at. You have lots of ways to hear about stuff happening. You have some form where you are of industry news. I always used to use the phrase trade papers. I don't know what you guys may or may not have there. But if you're going to look at trying to, these are 3 of my favorite words again, aside from the 3 I used earlier, enhance the likelihood. Legitimate actor activity, enhance the likelihood. If you're going to look to enhance the likelihood of creating an opportunity, which I just call a job interview, an audition, then you have to, it's not so much thinking out of the box, you just have to expand how you listen to and how you hear things. I've always said about social media, don't worry about who's following you. If you have people in your marketplace that are making stuff, executive producers, directors, producers, supervising producers, showrunners, whoever it may be, follow them. Follow them, because the world we live in today, people expose shit that they're doing, places they're going to be. I make a joke all the time. I've been doing it in Hollywood for 3 decades because I was accidentally in the right place at the right time and just showed up. Now, I know we've been through a pandemic and all that. I'm not going to let the pandemic filter this conversation, because this conversation needs to be in perpetuity for you guys. It needs to not just be at this moment in time. But when you think about sourcing ideas, not only within your own community, your own network, and your own friends, and the places that you go, but there's no place where you couldn't possibly find some information. So make sure that you try to, I'm a big advocate of volunteering at film festivals. I'm an advocate of signing up to be a volunteer at charity events where you know highfalutin people in this industry will be. Anything that gives you an access point that goes beyond some just basic electronic breakdown or the basic process shit that your representative is doing. And then I don't mean that in a bad way, just because I say shit, that's just colorful. It's just, that's what that limitation is. And that's not what me being here for an hour is about. It's not about what's standard. It's about going past standard. So that's your position in the business and other ways to source at least the ground information. And even if it's off an electronic submission and you want to go after it, then you're going to have to look at that electronic submission differently. You're going to have to start paying more attention to the people that are at the top of that. And I say this all the time, and all I need is maybe a nod or just Kevin find a thumbs up or something. But I'm asking everybody a question. If you were looking for a job, and you had the choice between having a job interview, first one, with human resources, or you had the opportunity to have a job interview with the vice president of the department that you were going to work in, and you had that choice, Xander, Sharon, Romero, Tessa, Liza, Paul, if you had that choice, which one would you choose? I already know the answer. You would, exactly, you would choose the VP, because we all would choose that, because you know inherently that person has more power than HR. It doesn't mean that HR doesn't matter. But what I've never understood about this community, other than basic fear or concern, is why we don't spend more time going after the people who actually write the check and say yes. Because that does not mean, by the way, I get dozens and dozens of casting friends. I'm not dismissing them. I'm talking about supplementing, which is this entire conversation, is occasionally, small percentage of your efforts, supplement your efforts with the process or the standards with going after some folks that are the people who would be the VP at Hewlett Packard, which are the showrunners, supervising producers, directors of projects. And that is my general philosophy. You don't have to do it all the time, but most of us never do it. And that's why I'm here today for you guys on Thursday, not 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. Now, third aspect I want to talk about is, this is a huge thing for me. It always has been. It's a big thing in my book, is what I call areas of industry, because this is important. This goes back to not only your self-casting, but it also goes back to, again, my dating analogy of making sure you understanding where you're at, because every single different type of work in this profession has a different scope. People used to say to me all the time, oh, I want to do television. And again, I'm being a smart ass. Let me warn you guys ahead of time, because I don't know you and I can't reach out and touch you because we're not in the same room, or at least have you hit me. And I would always look back at them and go, oh, you want to be a game show host? And they would look at me like I was being a jerk. But a game show host in the States is a legitimate union performer job. I live my life by the 4 agreements. I don't make assumptions. And I'm suggesting going forward, you do yourself this favor. Always make sure you're paying attention to the exact medium of what you're pursuing. Comedy television, for the same, let's say a plumber in comedy television is not the same plumber in a drama show. And neither of them are the same plumber in a daytime soap opera. This is my point. So when you look at something, no longer just race to the roles and see if you're right for something. Make sure you look at the area of industry in which you would be performing, because your self-casting, again, out of limited time and not wanting to over frustrate yourself, because there's no guarantee of return on what I'm talking about, of course, because there isn't in life in ways, and there certainly isn't in this profession. I've had 46 agents and managers, by the way, in my career. So how you doing? That should have been way funnier. I was looking for like 3 smiles on that shit, but I didn't get them. It's cool. Thanks, Joel. I appreciate it. So just make sure you really actually consider that, because if you don't, what we tend to do, especially coming out of a conversation like this, is we wind up doing too much. And the last thing I want you to do to yourself is overwhelm yourself. It's very easy for us to do. When the pursuit, the real pursuit of the profession, as I define it, doesn't have a guaranteed return. I'd rather see you pick out 1-2 projects a month. You look at your position, what you think's available, whatever your source may have been, and you look at the specific area that that role falls into, that job falls into, and you consider that in terms of your physical product and do you fit? Because casting for different aspects of this profession hires different people. I will never play certain, despite my resume, there are certain people I will simply never get to play in our drama that I would get to play in half hour, that I wouldn't get to play in daytime, even if they looked like by description the same role. So that's a real big consideration when you're going to go create legitimate actor activity for yourself. Now, when you start targeting the people you're going after, again, I'm not dismissing casting. Casting is an important part of this, whether it's an assistant, an associate, a casting director, that's completely fine. But I'm still the guy, if you're going to make this kind of an effort, that I'd at least like to see you, I'm going to use a war phrase, nobody panic. I'd at least like to see you flank that effort by going after 1 or 2 people in the production, depending on how large of a production it is. In Australia, I'm not going to say that it works drastically differently, but most marketplaces, whether it's Sydney, Melbourne, Paris, London, or everywhere else, in certain ways, Canada has modeled themselves out of the history of Hollywood. And I happen to know one of the #1 television directors in Stockholm, and I've talked to him about it, and I know they basically function, maybe not perfectly on an 8-day schedule, but they function very similar to the way we do in the States. But going after the casting director is perfectly fine on your own. I'm all for it. I'll be getting to that in a second. But I still would recommend, if you're really going to try to create opportunities, that you start thinking, if you know, however you guys research, I don't know if you use IMDb Pro or something there that's like that, but I would encourage you to at least flank that effort with one person who is on the actual production staff rather than just casting, because casting technically is HR and independent contractors. But here's the thing I want to say. The smaller the project goes, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, hey man, nothing wrong with getting a 3rd lead in $1.5 million film, right? I'm all for it. I'll take it tomorrow. And I have a long resume. Take it tomorrow. But the smaller the project, the more hats people start wearing. The more you start seeing writer, producer, director, writer, producer, producer, director. So your effort that can have a transcendent effect on you creating that legitimate actor activity actually gets sort of either duplicated or sometimes cubed by a smaller project. Also, a lot of times, even in today's crazy world, access to some of those people or finding some of those people in your town becomes a little bit easier when it's an independent project or something that is a little bit smaller project. So always bear that in mind, that your players that go past casting wear more hats when the budget comes down a little bit on a project. Okay. And it's also one of the reasons why people ask this question all the time. I'm going to kind of front it now, which is, well, Kevin, let's say it's a popular show in Australia, whichever one it is, and there's 4 producers and an executive producer and a showrunner and a hoo-hoo dilly. Which producer do I choose? There's no right answer to that. None. 0. Donut. I will tell you 2 things. I don't know how it holds in Australia, but I need to make sure I say it in this recording anyway. Number 1, typically when it's a brand new show and it's a pilot, let's say, you care about who the executive producer is. But typically, once a show is up and running and it's actually going through its cycle, especially after it's gone through its first season, the executive producers will not have as much to do with the stuff that I'm talking about as you would expect. It's going to be much more one of the co-producers or one of the supervising producers, if they give them those titles where you guys are. It's going to give them, they're going to be much more involved in the casting process than the EPs are. Just as a small, dark gray line to draw, not hard line, black and white, but just bear that in mind when you think about who you might go after when you start targeting the people for this project. Again, I have enough ladies here. Let's see, who can I pick on that's actually smiling? Victoria. Let's pick on Victoria because she's right in the middle of my screen. Hey, Victoria, what's happening? All right. Don't worry, I'm not going to freak you out, and I'm a long way away, so I can't bother you.
Hey, Kim here. Just real quick, I wanted to let you know our members are mostly in America. We have a group of members from Australia, but we've got mostly Americans in your group here.
Oh, okay. Well, then everything I said still applies to the U.S., but thank you, Kim, for telling me that. I appreciate it. So, Victoria, I'm going to pick on you. So, and of course, I'm making a joke because I grew up with two women, and I already know this is the case. But if you thought about it, the location that you are when someone asks you out or quote unquote hits on you makes their approach different. And if it doesn't, it should. This is the general mentality up to this point that I'm trying to share with you, because if you're meeting somebody in the backyard at a party who's a friend of yours who's the host, that's a whole different moment in time. If you're at a bar, it's a whole different moment in time. If you're hiking, it's a whole different moment in time. This is why I use dating as an analogy for this profession. And I use other analogies that I'll get to in just a few minutes. But guys, I want you guys to consider the mentality of your approach based on everything I've said to this point as best you can. Trust me, there is no answer. It's literally a chapter in my book, The Answer. I know we'd like for there to be an answer, but this isn't math. And so therefore, unfortunately, you have to do the best you can based on what I'm saying. But if you don't consider the type, the person, the title, and all of these things, there's a part of it that is just you taking your own time up. And I want you to be effective with creating opportunities by doing something more smarter and better than maybe what your rep is doing on a particular project or how you read a particular breakdown on an electronic portal. That's my entire point. So when you talk about the kind of actions that we can take, well, the good part about this is finite, man. There's only so many things you can do. You can only email someone or send them a piece of snail mail or some kind of a message on social media. My favorite thing, which is how I built part of my career, was I did drop-offs like the wind way back in the day. And by the way, they still work. They work globally. It's not what you do, it's how you do it, right? Same thing, Victoria. That's my point. Every person knows what someone's thinking when they walk up and hit on them, but some people simply do it better than others, right?
Right.
It's the same thing with actors talking to people on the other side of the camera. Some people are just more proficient at it than others, and it's not creepy and it's not gross and blah, blah, blah. So understand that we are limited with regards to what we're doing. Electronic submissions, we can make a phone call, we can, write somebody the email or a text. Here's the point. The last thing you want to do in any of these efforts, and I'm going to clarify a couple of them, the last thing you want to do is say too much. This is my point about the dating joke. And again, I grew up with two ladies. The person who comes up and like rushes up, it's like, whoa, bro, back up. It's like you can't, and comes on, as the old phrase goes, too strong. It is the nature of us to do that. I completely understand it. Please know, everybody realize everything I talk about, the Actors Network, everything was predicated upon not only mistakes I had made at that point, but ones I was currently making back then. The key is to just learn from them really quickly and not make them too much.
Right.
Every person on the other side of the desk from you, from casting all the way up to Steven Spielberg, they all know what we're thinking if they know they're talking to an actor. You don't have to pound it on top of someone. Brevity is your best friend. It is natural for us. I totally get it. It is natural for us to feel like we have to make an impression and then justify our existence as an actor. And I'm begging you, from a long way away for some of you, please avoid doing that. So that comes down to stuff you write And I've always been an advocate. I don't send people blind emails unless I've been given their email by them directly. And I'm also somewhat careful about any form of direct messaging on social media. I work to at least create an association. There's another one of my 3 words. I got 3 of them so far I've given you. Legit actor activity, enhance the likelihood, and create an association. You're not trying to become friends with people in this business, man. This is about job interviews. That's all it's about. So just don't go over the top with your notes, anything that you would say in person. Because here's the thing. They're never going to tell you that they didn't want to give you an audition because you seem like somebody who would be crazy town on the set. But that's what they're thinking. I know this from all the casting friends and all the people that I've had through the decades. They meet somebody, even maybe through a good friend. Even in an audition room, the actor who starts saying too much before they read and doesn't leave the room after they leave. It just becomes that guy. I mean, here comes Victoria. Here comes another one. Sorry, guys, here it comes. You try to find a way to laugh, please. You know, if you walk up to somebody and say, hey, would you like to dance? Victoria, say no.
No.
Well, why not? Okay, just call the police, right? You don't do that. We as a community, this is one of the reasons why I believe subconsciously we don't put ourselves in the position of really trying to create a lot of opportunities because we don't want to get a direct no. I learned a long time ago for the no to dance to not bother me, and I don't take any of this profession's process personally. I'm a Pisces. I'm a sensitive dude, even though I grew up in the rural South. I know, too much information, you don't care. I got it. The point being is that all you're trying to do when you walk away from somebody or when they read something you sent them is have them think, they seem kind of normal. You guys may not think this is a big concern. I'm telling you, the world we live in, this is a big concern for how you may function on the set when you wind up having 2 lines with so-and-so who's the star of the show. It's a thing. So when you go to actually do action options, repetitive action options, and again, I'm even talking about walking up to people and talking to them. It has to be something where you're not doing or saying too much because it isn't necessary. Once they know you're an actor, they know why you're speaking to them. I'm the guy who always says, has a funny story, have something to tell or say, hey, Tony, I didn't realize you're in the room, man. My bad. I didn't see you, bro. Hey, the one person in the room that I personally know. Yay. So just don't do too much. I know it's hard to figure out what that is, but I promise somewhere along the way, you will begin to figure it out. I hope you're not losing me. Oof, I hope not. I'm hardwired in. So I just now saw that note. I hope that's not my connection because I'm Thunderbolt hardwired in. Okay, so now we get to the outcome of this, of your execution. Understand that in any project you're going after, that one effort towards them and one individual may not be enough. If it's a show that you really like to be on, I'm just going to give an example. And there were 6 or 7 producers, which tends to happen the longer show's on the air. And you start out with one. The good thing about people that are not in casting or representatives is they don't get a lot of proactive stuff from actors. That's a good thing. You really only have to hit them about 3 times a year. Whereas you may have to triple that for people in casting because they just don't get stuff from actors. Actors just don't do it. So you don't, but at the same time, timing. We're in a huge partial information game in this entire conversation, y'all. Huge partial information game. We don't know if somebody lost a parent that week. We don't know if they're in the office, if they're on vacation. You may want to, as a staggered effort with anybody, if you're doing it through some sort of messaging, or because I'm a huge fan of snail mail. And if you don't know why, it's because no one else does it. And that's exactly why. It stands out. Stands out. And I'm a big believer in the cliche, successful people do all the things unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. And we think, oh my God, I got to put something in an envelope. No one does that. That's so 1987 when I had really bad hair. parachute pants, the whole nine. Trust me, it was not a good look. It was like Flock of Seagulls, only worse. But that's exactly why I do snail mail, because everyone has an ego. Don't forget, man, we're human. They're like, oh my God, somebody took the time to actually send me some shit. That's my point about doing it. But one time may not work because you may not really be right for something that week. So this is why I say back early into this, don't overwhelm yourself. I want you to create opportunities. I want you to be proactive beyond the electronic process or your representative, but I don't want you to bite off so much that you wind up losing pace, because the key is for that show, you want to make sure you do that 3 times in the year and maybe pick a second person. Don't constantly avoid the idea of relying on one person or one effort, because guys, come on, that's why I use the dating thing. It's stuff. We'd all like to fall in love the first time at 21, have it be blissful for 62 years. I get it. But with all respect, that doesn't happen a lot. So in this profession, it doesn't happen a lot either. You may have to be doing, more than once. That's all I'm saying. And all you're ever trying to do with something in writing, or even when you chat with someone, and this is in the little document that I sent, which is you want to inform them and disarm them. So when I used to walk in to offices a lot on studio lots, what they commonly thought was I was lost. They commonly thought, because again, there people like travel to Los Angeles and they want, they're trying to get on a game show and they just, we're doing some sort of studio tour and shit and wandered up into a building and somebody's like, what, you're in the wrong place. You got to go down here, turn right, get the hell out of this building. So one of the things I would do is I try to front in conversations so people know that no, I'm here for a reason. So inform and disarm. I used to say, no, I understand the casting process. I just wanted to leave this for, and I'd say their bosses, whoever the executive producer, whatever I was doing. So I informed them and disarmed them. And I also left very fast. This is not if you're talking about anything that happens by accident, in person, at a party or whatever, guys, when you chat, you are not lingering. Remember, that's the creepy guy in the bar who comes back, when a girl says she didn't want to dance because I'm holding drinks for my friend or it's hot or whatever. No, that's just a nice way to say, bro, the no is for the rest of this place, this night, and in perpetuity. We don't get this down. And it does. You don't come back 3 hours later and go, you want to dance now? It's still going to be no. So lingering, thank you for smiling. Lingering is not, and that's one of the reasons why casting has a hard time with our community. That's why we scare them, because you can't linger. It's not because it's 2022. This was the same problem in 1992. We haven't evolved that much as a species, y'all. Human beings still get nervous and scared by the same shit they got scared by 30 years ago. It's not uncommon. So your goal is to inform and disarm, even in your written stuff. Commonly say, I would love the opportunity to read for your show. That's it. That's all I got to say. Whatever you're sending in should tell them everything else about you. That's all. You don't have to say anything else. If you're talking to somebody, chat about anything except for being an actor. It'll come up at some point. Yeah, I'm currently studying. I'm auditioning. It's cool. So anyway, back to, what happened at the football game. Change the subject. You just want to be somebody that they feel comfortable bringing in, and somebody that they would feel comfortable if you were really good, that would be on your set. That's all you're trying to do in terms of the outcome of your efforts. It's the old thing of KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. We naturally, and again, I get it. If you guys tried to imagine me 3 decades ago, just take a moment, really, even without coffee. I mean, I was like a 4-month-old Labrador in the glass menagerie. It was like, wah! I mean, I was rolling up on everyone. I was still really sharp and smart, but I made a handful of mistakes with a couple of people. The thing is, I knew I'd made the mistake, and I learned really fast. Oh, okay, that's too much. That's too far. Writing stuff, 2 paragraphs, nobody's reading it. It's not, I'm not going to make a Twitter joke, but it's pretty close to that. And this is good for us, is that we live in a little bit of a 260 character world. I'm sorry, 280. I apologize. They changed it. My bad. Somebody would have typed in the chat 280, bro. So the good part about it is that 280 characters in a note to somebody in this profession, Thanks, Richard. 280, bro. It's kind of accurate. You don't have to say that much, even to representatives. If you're being proactive and you want to get a representative, it's like, I would love the opportunity to have a meeting with you about your client list. That's all you're asking to do. And notice the words that I use. I don't say, I'm seeking a new agent. I don't use the same words everybody else does. I talk in their language, because the more you talk in their language, the more you feel to them, regardless of your credits, like a professional who's going to be low maintenance. And low maintenance is hugely important. So being proactive, which is my thing. We always react to stuff, but being proactive requires some je ne sais quoi. It requires you practicing it. And I always have said to people all through the years, crawl before you walk. Practice doing some of this stuff on smaller projects where maybe the person in casting isn't somebody who also cast your favorite show that you want to be on. Maybe it's the wife or director, or the reverse, the husband of the wife who's directing. I don't care. I don't care about any of that stuff. What I care about is you being successful. What I care about is you having positive results. What I care about is you learning how to walk between the raindrops, because that's what this is. This is that old school game. See, I'm showing my age now. That old school game of operation where you're trying to get that little thing out of. It's a very ever moving, weaving line inside of a party, in the line at Starbucks, at a small dinner party. You didn't realize so-and-so was going to be there. It's crazy town. It's crazy town. We sometimes don't know. Accidents happen, happenstance happens. But if you're going to go after something, please start going after it and understand, yes, you know how to speak. Yes, you know how to talk. But there's still a part of us that's at the bottom of the totem pole. And we all know that. And that's why I used to always say to ladies, it's harder sometimes for y'all, because in life, you are used to getting attention. And it's all you have to really do is just kind of Heisman everybody. Sorry, that's an American football joke. But in this, you have to be just as deft and just as sly and just as smooth and just as cool as the rest of us do. Or as we like to say, dudes need to have better game, because they do. So this is about actor game. I literally did a program once called Actor Game, because that's what this shit is. Being proactive from research. I say it all the time, research. Learn as much as you can about what and who you're going after. Social media, follow the people you're going after and see what they say that's going to help you understand more about maybe where to accidentally run into them. And if you do something 3 or 4 times a year, at some point it might land at the moment when they get it. It's the right timing for you. And if you encounter somebody in person, this is not your only shot at the title. You cannot try, and again, sorry, I'm not trying to be inappropriate. I'm telling you, I say these things because we all know what they mean. You encounter a professional player in this business. This is not a one-night stand. It's not. You have to be willing to walk away and just have a casual encounter of conversation with them, because what you've just accomplished is you've established an association professionally. And your work starts after that. But if those 60 or 90 seconds or 5 minutes in a group of 6 people talking at a party, however it goes down, when you walk away, they think, wow, Joel's cool. You won. Because now the ability to create that opportunity, that door just got halfway open instead of this or bolted shut. And no matter what occurs, you guys, as it says at the end of my document, what you always want to be doing, to me, is you want to be creating more people who've done one of 3 things to you or with you. They've seen your work, or you met them in person, or you know they saw your demo reel. Whether they saw you perform in person, they saw your demo reel, or you met them in person. I don't care where you met them. I don't care if you live in Paris and you met them in Melbourne. If you live in Melbourne, you met them in LA, or live in LA and you were traveling and you met them. I don't care. You encounter somebody in person. This is what we be selling, along with what comes out of us in terms of our work. So when you can add more people to your master contact list, the phrase I've been using for 32 years, you win, because the more active, legitimate people you have in your marketplace who know you, the better off. What's the old phrase in Hollywood? It's who you know. Man, almost 30 years ago, I started saying, no, it's who knows you. You ever hear that someplace out on the internet? As Kim said, I'm kind of the pioneer, the godfather. Believe me, it came from me. No one said target list in 1993 for actors until I started doing it. So just understand, it's about who knows you, but it's also how they know you, how they met you, and what their moment for them was. We sometimes enjoy different food, and we sometimes wear different shoes. This is a concept and a philosophy. Once it works successfully one day, understand it's just a few words, or it's a way you go about doing something based on the environment or the place that you are, but you can't be hardline about this. The concept of what I'm discussing is formulaic, but the people that we're going after are still individuals. And so on some days, you're in the mood for Mexican. On some days, you're in the mood for Italian. On some days, you're wearing pumps. Some days, you're wearing wedges. And some days, you're wearing 6-inch stilettos. Understand the people we're going after are human, and you have to assess things, both the breakdown, how you're attacking it, and also them, if you're ever encountering them, you have to be very, very observant to have this be successful enough that when you walk away, they look forward to getting something from you at some point, and or they look forward to having you read for them and hopefully be on their project. Now, I can tell that it's 7:45 my time, which makes it 4:45 Australia time, which means we have reached the question part of this. So, Kim, I'm going to shut up, which is really hard for me to do. I know that's a shocker for you. Put the pencil in the air, and I'm open to anything anybody has to ask. Because we both want to be respectful of the hour. Victoria, is that you? You're lit up like you're going to talk. Does anybody have any questions?
I'll let you helm the questions, Kevin. And guys, if we don't have questions, Kevin, maybe you can just keep on chatting and fill the time to the end, because you have hundreds.
Well, first, I'd be a little depressed if there isn't a question. It's okay if there's not, but I'd love for there to be one. It's okay if there's not. I don't know if that's a hand raised.
I have a thought, not a question.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. Hi, how
Thank
are
you, Christian.
Good to see you. I loved everything you said. I did have a question initially when I was coming on, but you've kind of answered it as you were, talking. I'm someone who doesn't want to play stereotypes, and I'm happy that Hollywood has now stepped away from that. They're now casting us as people, and people are getting to see us for who we are. And I got invited to audition for Marvel. It's nice to finally see yourself on screen. We have MJ Rodriguez, Amia Scott, Laverne Cox, all those. I look at them and go, I can do it too. And yes, I am Christian fucking Kenyanjui, and I am Hollywood's next big thing. Yeah, look out for me.
Yes. And, correct. That's why when you look at roles and you think about doing something to create an opportunity, I completely agree. You don't have to, based on one's gender, ethnicity, limit yourself as much as we used to at all. I mean, way back in the day when I was young, there was a show called China Beach. It was one of the first shows in the history of Hollywood that actually, way back in the late 80s, actually auditioned people for, because it was a military show. And the reason why they did it is because it actually made sense. It was the first time I'd ever seen a show where I showed up to an audition and there were women and people of color auditioning for the same role I was. Now, I personally love that. It's gotten much harder for somebody and by the way, guys, I'm from the South and I left for a reason. We'll just leave it at that. But I have, it's harder and harder for a white boy who's not a star to get a job. I don't give a shit. I don't concern myself with such things. But you are correct, but still bear in mind that I tend to look at casting more I try to take types in a much more simple way so that we do better with our own selves. And I'm going to go down a slightly different road here real fast for 90 seconds. Here it comes. If I were to ask all of you right now to write down, if I was in the room with you, I'd ask you to write down, do you think you're more white collar or more blue collar? Write it down right now. Don't kid yourself. Don't kid yourself. I know everybody goes, oh, I can play both. I'm talking about your essence, man. Are you somebody who always goes out of the house, no matter where you're going, dressed to the nine? Thank you. I got white and white. Okay. Here's my other question. Do you think your essence, the core of you, not where you live, do you think the core of you is more rural or more city?
Oh, city.
I'm not talking about what you may, guys, remember, we're not talking about what we react to. I make a joke all the time. I did every daytime television show in Los Angeles going all the way back to freaking Santa Barbara. I mean, I still get like 1 cent checks from Malaysia. I'm huge in Malaysia. So that should have been funnier. Thank you. So my point being, I did every one of them except for Days of Our Lives. And you know what? Days of Our Lives can just, whatever, doesn't matter. My point to that point being is that the reality may be you may react to a job that comes your way, but that's not what today's conversation is about. I never pursued daytime television. I accepted auditions when I got them. We're talking about proactive pursuit. And if you're going to proactively pursue stuff, being really clear that when you naturally encounter somebody, I promise you, this profession thinks in these very simple 4 terms, these 4 fence posts I just put down for you: white collar, blue collar, city, rural. There's an essence that you have, whether you like it or not. I'm not talking about what you could play if given the opportunity. I'm talking about the vibe you get. If I was in LA, people used to think I was from New York. And I mean, y'all got to realize, man, I used to talk like this right here. I am from butt snot nowhere, Tennessee. It's actually on the map. I grew up no shoes, cut off blue jeans, fishing for catfish, no shit. And yet a good percentage of my work is both. I do legitimately, I have the resume to show I play white collar and blue collar. But my essence, then you start breaking it down to roles. You guys have sat here now for 50 minutes to listen to me. Yeah, well, it's outside, Paul. It's outside Nashville, but it's also back in the day. See, Nashville today is like Las Vegas. Nashville in 1969 was like the movie Deliverance. So that's where I grew up, Deliverance. So if you guys were to ask right now, oh, Kevin, do you think I would get more often cast as a prosecuting attorney or a defense attorney? Somebody type it in. Yeah. Les is like, yeah. Prosecutor. My energy is right up in your face. I literally played third base in baseball. There you go. This is what I'm sharing with you. That doesn't mean that I couldn't play a defense attorney. I'm a Pisces. I'm sensitive. I can be more chill. That's not my point. My point is that when people naturally encounter me, when I naturally write something, when I naturally speak, I come across to people, despite how kind I am, a little more direct. You have to know that about yourself, man. Christian, that's my point. It's great that that the door has opened and broadened. Absolutely. I'll make a joke with you. That actually just gives you more opportunities to get this wrong. That's my point, which is good. But I want you to be more adept at knowing that when you step into something, when you write stuff, when you talk on the phone, it's that vibe. You've got to know a little bit about this the more you're going to attack stuff, because you can't get away from it. And most of the time, when someone doesn't know you or you don't have a ton of credits, and you can look at half-hour television in America, and I can tell you right now, I've talked to Woody Harrelson. I know some of these people, and they're an awful lot like the person you would meet on the street. That doesn't mean that they're not good at the show. I'm just saying, they walked into a room and Modern Family went, yeah, Eric Stone Street. There we go. Him, that guy right there. Woody Harrelson walked in to replace the old bartender on Cheers, and they went, yep, that guy right there. So there's a part of you can't get away from when you're building a resume in smaller roles. And it's imperative that you kind of know, would you be the doctor that has good bedside manner as a nature that doesn't make you a bad person, or someone that's more always going to be nurturing? Are you more blue collar or white collar, more city, more rural? These are basic things that when you start looking at breakdowns, you don't just go to the role that looks like, because we all read ourselves into every damn role we can possibly read ourselves into if the age range is remotely close. It's like, well, I think I could play that. I mean, that's just the nature of us, y'all, because opportunities are hard to come by. I get it. But the last thing you want to do, if you're going to be proactive, and you're going to, I know I say y'all all the time, Renee, it comes out. It's actually why I got involved in improv, so I can actually do a lot of accents and dialects, help me get rid of my southern dialect. So it only comes out usually if I start drinking, but I say y'all all the time. The last thing you want to do is be the actor, especially if you're over 22 or 23, who goes after something intelligently, and you do it well, and you learn from this, but then you go after stuff and people think you're nuts for going after, like, you're not ever going to come in for that. Then you look goofy. That can be size of role, that can be the essence. That's my point. I don't have any, and I haven't for a long time. I can separate. This is my big thing, and I'll kind of wrap on this. It's actually in my book. I'm a big advocate of understanding the difference between how your loved ones, your lover, your friends and people see you, and how this business sees you as a product for sale. Because I'm holding a pen and a pencil. They're both really similar. They're even similar in shape and size. They are not the same. And how you appear to this industry and how you think you appear to yourself or in your acting class or to your friends may be, and commonly is, two different things. Tony, the man sitting in this room, how long have you known me now, Tony? 17 years? 18?
Maybe more.
It's a long freaking time.
You're aging me.
and Tony knows that I have a huge heart. He met me because I was doing a charity event. But typically, I can, on a given day, come off to somebody like I'm just always going to be a prosecuting attorney. I know that about me. We have to own those things if you're going to be proactive and go after stuff to try and create legitimate actor activity that otherwise isn't there. Liza, what'd you say? Number one note casting will give us, they don't belong in the world. So better know what world we do belong in. Yeah. I mean, I audition all the time with stuff that I just think I kill, and I don't get hired. And then I get hired and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, after that happens 5 or 10 times, you got to start figuring out how they're seeing you. But go all the way back to what I said in the area of industry, how they see you: daytime television, half-hour television, hour drama, independent film, more latitude. Christian, there you go, more latitude, smaller roles and or less stars, the wider the, but a lot of us grow up doing theater. And so we get used to the theater casting, which is, a 24-year-old playing a 75-year-old. And typically, unless, you're Brad Pitt in Case of Curious Case of Benjamin Button, that's not going to work out for us if you're not a star yet. So have a degree of self-understanding and humility about what you're going to go after, because I'm telling you, the last thing I want to come from this is that you bite off more than you can chew and you get overwhelmed and frustrated. That is exactly what I do not want you to do. Okay. I want you to be successful at 4 or 5 times a year, creating a contact and an opportunity that you couldn't have gotten just by clicking the electronic portal and that your representative didn't get. That's what I want for you guys. Tess, can you repeat again the different approach to an agent rather than saying seeking representation? And where's Tess at? Where's Tess hiding on my screen over here? There she is. Hey, Tess.
Hey.
Heck, girl. when they talk, when representatives talk, when they talk about us as clients, they talk about their client roster or their client list. And I don't ever say, would you see me? No, I say, I've always I learned this early on, more empowered. I'm currently taking meetings. And I would say something really colorful with an M and an F word behind that if I wasn't in a room, I don't know people. But I always say, I'm currently taking meetings, would love the opportunity to talk with you about being on your client list. That's all you have to say. That's it. Ever, 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 ever. Everyone knows what that means. It basically is the same as, hey, Tess, you want to dance? It's the same thing. It's the same shit. It's, I'd like to be in your house. That's it.
Yeah.
But to use the phrase client list and to say I'm taking meetings, not I'm hoping you'll give me one, it's a linguistic psychological premise. I make jokes about Star Wars all the time. You don't need to see their ID. These aren't the droids you're looking for. We don't need to see, these aren't the droids. I tell people what to think. That's what I learned about Hollywood early on. So, and I also tell people, by saying those words, I understand how this business works. I know that I'm a client on a roster. I'm not new in town seeking representation. And if I say that too many times, I will literally probably throw up. So again, see, the longer we get into this, the more the smart ass comes out. But that's the approach, whether it's in writing, on the phone, in person. That's the phraseology I use. 2 sentences. That's it. Done. Anybody got another one?
Yeah, I had another question actually. Like, what are your thoughts with, say, with worldwide casting calls, how they want to you to send in a 30-second or minute video of yourself? Are they just trying to get a sense of your essence in that essentially? Or do you think they're trying to look for the link?
Well, Tessa, my question would be, what are they asking you to do in those 30 or 60 seconds in that video? What is the action request by them?
Oh, sorry. Can you still hear me?
I can see you.
The recent one was something you're like passionate about.
Something okay. So yes, in that scenario, they exactly are trying to get simply a flavor. This is the phrase I use a lot. It's a car reference. The flavor of how you idle. Some cars idle loud, some cars, and so they also the reason why they say something you're passionate about, in my opinion, is because they want to see what you look like and or kind of how you animate when you're supposedly talking about something that's important to you. That's why they use the word passionate, because they want to see, we know that you're alive, but they want to see within a few words of once you start talking about it, how you come more alive. That would be my opinion of that question.
Amazing. Thank you.
Sure. Kim, it's 5
I have a question.
So. Okay, fire away. Who am I missing?
Hi, I'm right here.
Okay. Oh. Gotcha.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for a great presentation. I'm sorry, everyone. This is kind of a selfish question. I've seen one of your cover photos and you're holding a cigar. What cigars are you into?
It happens. I may have one tomorrow.
What do you like to smoke?
Oh, Cubans. I mean, simple stuff, Maduros, Boleros, anything that's. I'm not a cigar aficionado, and I don't smoke strong cigars. Mild stuff.
Gotcha.
Mild stuff.
Gotcha. Ever go to V-Cut?
No, haven't been.
No, not a place for you.
Haven't been. I tend to smoke them on the golf course. I wanted to be a professional athlete, and I'm still a single-digit handicap, and about the only time I smoke is usually if I play golf. Gotcha, I'm not a smoker, so usually about the only time I do it.
Gotcha. Well, you've answered all my questions on the whole presentation, so thank you so much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Kim's in the room now. I don't know what's going on over there with the baby, but there she is.
I've just been chilling with this dude.
We've got a baby, right?
Kevin, I do have a question. You have a lavalier mic on. Do you recommend that people use a lav mic for their auditions, or do you think that camera sound is equal to that?
I'm going to say that it depends a little bit on your phone or your camera, but I would have a PreSonus, and I would try to use a lav mic. I probably would be more inclined, Kim, to use a lav mic if I felt like that the material I was going to need to communicate, that it was really important to me to be pretty intimate. And also in the world we live in today, Kim, that would also be judged based on whether or not I actually got a friend of mine to stop by and read with me, or whether or not I was reading with somebody on FaceTime.
How does that impact the decision?
Pardon me?
How does that impact the decision?
Because when somebody's reading on FaceTime, because they're coming out of the computer, which is right up next to my phone on the tripod, the phone seems to pick that up better. And when someone's sitting in my house, they're behind the camera. Literally, their voice is going a direction into the back of the phone because I have them behind. And the phone sometimes, if it's a quiet scene, doesn't pick it up quite as well.
Okay. That would be
because light is omnipotent, but sound is directional.
Yeah.
And so that would be the reason why I would choose one or the other.
Okay, so if you've got someone in the room with you, you would use a lavalier mic?
I might, again, if the material is a little more calm. If it's not, no problem, Arsham. Good to see you, man. If it's not, then I wouldn't necessarily feel the need to do that. It depends on how much I feel like that I may not be wanting to be particularly vocal,
yeah,
or loud, as it were.
Okay, awesome. Groovy. Guys, do we have maybe time for one more question if anyone has a final burning question that they have. Oh, we've got two. Are you okay with time?
Tony and Virginia's gonna bring us home.
All right. Quick question, Kevin. Thanks for inviting me to this event. We got some major feedback going on.
What is that? Is that Kim? Somebody has a camera. Okay.
I've muted myself. Virginia, would you mind muting yourself until your question comes up?
There we go. So quick question, Kevin. As you start to climb the ranks from, background under 5, day player, series, blah, 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 do you get to a point where on a major show you would still do an under 5, but an independent, you'd only take a lead or co-star? How do you deal with knowing how to navigate where the industry doesn't think you're snobbish?
Yeah, I'm going to start out by saying, hopefully this is definitely an area of industry question, and I'll answer it this way. Oddly, while I did improv and stand-up, most of my career has been hour drama, which is interesting, but that's the way it's gone. And because it became so heavily weighted towards drama early on, I eventually, and I won't use the word snobbish, I'll use the word professional acumen. There is a point at which you have to start saying no, and I will only do this. And to the point of Christian, what we said earlier, I don't audition that much anymore because I will only read for guest stars, recurring guest stars, or series regulars. So I don't audition a lot, and that's okay with me. Because if I ever were to step back and do a co-star at this point again, I would never make it back, and I'm not doing that. I'm not willing to do it. But to your point, Tony, and I said it earlier, I just happened to use Eric Stone Street, but I'm going to bring the show back up again just because it just went off the air. Because I don't have a lot of half-hour comedy, and because the billing of co-star versus guest star in a half-hour show is so much dicier than it is in an hour show. If Modern Family would have called me up, my manager up, the last 2 episodes before it went off the air and said, we'd like to see Kevin for a 3-line co-star, I would have been there in 2 seconds. Because that one job, even though it would have been a co-star, Modern Family, Emmy award-winning show, right before it goes off the air, would help me with comedy going forward, and every network executive in comedy would see it. That's when I would make that decision, and that's why I'm such a staunch person on the difference of areas of industry. Because I have very little love over here, and I got 70 credits over here. So it's much more about, shoring up, the table leg with the match because the table's wobbling, what's down here, but not making a habit of it. So that's the choice. And again, independent films and the smaller the project is, this is what I would say to everybody is if you're going to be proactive and try to create an opportunity, at least if nothing else, if you don't know if there's a major star attached to it, at least try to be proactive if it's a smaller film about trying to go after one of the leads or at least one of the supportings, unless you have 0 credits or 0 experience, because there's no reason not to. Those projects only have so much money for one, and we both know, Tony, even if it's in the States, a low budget contract, which is $2.5 million, they might have money for 2, but the second person is going to be like a B- person. So they don't have any money for anybody else. So why not hire you? And so that's why I'm such a person going all the way back to the beginning of understanding your position, but then also looking at the area of industry and what kind of project it is, because that should help determine what you're willing to try and create activity for. And also sometimes based on your own resume, what you're willing to say yes or no to. But in one particular area, if you work a lot, you are eventually going, if you want to keep going, Christian, you're going to eventually have to. I turned down Ally McBeal, which at one time was a huge show in America, because it came along at a time where I had done just enough television, what they had wanted me to go and do, basically, a blind dog could have done. And I said no. And I remember my agent at the time go, "Are you sure it's Ally McBeal?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got to start saying no sometimes, bro. We're not doing this shit anymore." And I said no. You have to be willing to do that at a certain point as a professional. So I think that. Oh, Virginia, I'm sorry. You bring us home. You get the last one. It's all you, girlfriend.
All right. My question is, I think it has to do with overstaying, like the example you used, for example, on Backstage, when they ask just for a headshot, maybe a demo reel, should we include a resume too, just because you think they might want to see what you have done, or should we not include it if they don't ask for it?
Well, I would always include it if it's not sort of inherently available to them in the mechanism by which you're submitting. If it's inherently existent in your profile, then you wouldn't have to per se. But yeah, if it's not, then I would always include that for sure. Absolutely. And then Liza had a question that she wrote right there, which I'll go ahead and address. What's your best tips for making the best out of headlines in the trades to get your foot in on projects? Wow. How about that for a last, grad student level question? That is, that's not a freshman question. That's a tough one. So what you want to do, Liza, is actors don't want to try to pursue stuff too early into the development process. And yet you also can't really do what I'm talking about if it's a bigger project, if it's already in, if it's too close to production time. So you want to try to do what I would call the proactive efforts as early into whenever that project goes into pre-production. So if you see something, for example, either a true life story where you know the actual, what might involve the characters, and or an adaptation to a book that you might know, and you see in the trades that adaptation has been sold to so-and-so and it's gonna star blah, pay attention to who the production company is, pay attention to who's doing the damn thing, and look them up on IMDb Pro and start paying attention to where that you see that project is going. And right when you get maybe 3 months out or 2.5 months out from when they say they're going to start shooting, that's when you attack a project like that. Ish. Always ish. Everything's an ish. Life's an ish. Tomorrow is an ish. So there we go.
Great, Kevin. Thank you so much. Guys, this was an incredible seminar. Thank you for sticking with us to the end. And we'll see you soon. We very much appreciate it. Yay.
Absolutely my pleasure, Kim. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Hopefully someday I'll see you in Australia.
Yes, come to the beach.
Got it. Bye, you guys.